What's up, everyone? This is your host and founder, Leah, back with another episode of Breaking into Tech. And I'm really excited to bring on my next guest. Now, this guest is very unique because not only is he a senior in his position, but he also works in a very controversial industry within the tech space. So, super excited to bring him on just to hear about his journey, how he broke into tech, and also just hear some of his adversities that he may have gone through with being in this specific industry. So, looking forward to introducing you all to him. And here we go. What's up, Sean? How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm really excited for you to be here. So, before we get started, can you take a moment just to introduce yourself to the guests?
Yes, my name is Sean Ilenery. I know the last name's a little difficult. I'm Nigerian, but born and raised in Atlanta, still live in Atlanta, moved away a couple times. But I actually am the vice president of support at one of the largest companies in the cannabis tech space. And I love what we do, and I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, so that's the controversial piece right there, right? Cannabis. So I know we're in a different space now, right? So the cannabis industry today versus 5 to 10 years ago, different conversation. So I would love for you to start off first by telling us exactly what your role is within that industry. Like just break it down to a very, elementary level.
Yeah, so as an organization, what we do is we provide point of sale systems. So if you think of Square, we provide websites to our dispensaries. So you can think of Shopify. We even do delivery similar to DoorDash. So all this is technology behind it. So my team, I lead support, which essentially is customer support or tech support. We help dispensaries solve their problems. So if they have any issues in their centers or in their dispensaries, they're contacting us and we're trying to figure out ways to troubleshoot. I also have an engineering team under my team that actually can handle more complex issues as well. But we understand that our customers are dealing with a very tough industry. So whatever we can do to make their days easier, we want to hone in on that and make sure we're providing resolution as soon as possible.
Okay, awesome. So, Sean, what did you do before you broke into tech, and like how long have you been in the tech industry?
It's a difficult question, and here's why. I've used tech for the better part of my career, or I've worked in the IT offices. But officially in SaaS, in this tech part of the industry, I've been here, oh man, a little over 2 years, maybe almost 3 years. Prior to this, I was at Comcast for a couple of years. So I look at Comcast as really a tech company, even though they call themselves a cable company. They're primarily in tech. But prior to this, I started off as a call center agent. I was a call center agent for 4 years, worked my way up into workforce analytics, and that gave me an opportunity to grow into leadership roles where I then lived across the world, lived in Mexico, built teams in Costa Rica, Dominican Republic, the Philippines. So that call center world kind of opened up my eyes to what's possible. And if you think about it, almost every single company has a contact center where you're either going to email, chat, or call them. So what I did was highly transferable to any industry.
I love that, and I actually didn't know that before. So I'm glad you shared that with us. And I think that's really eye-opening to my guests because though I have a lot of individuals who are already in their profession and they're just trying to transition into the tech industry, but they've already had a career. There are some people that may be a little bit more entry level, like those call center professionals. And I think it's very inspirational to know that you started in that type of role and now you are a VP. So I want you all to look at that as some inspiration as well, because that definitely inspired me. And you're right. Every organization does have a contact center. I actually come from the an HR background, and it wasn't until I got into this role that I realized even when you call for your help support or help desk in the SaaS industry, specifically software industry, HR has a contact center. So there's specific HR representatives that have a call center type environment that work in a call center type environment. So that can definitely open up a lot of different avenues, and it's good that you were able to follow that path to lead you where you are right now. Now, 3 years to VP, I need to hear this story. So tell us how you got there.
Yeah, so for me, I was already a senior leader. So I became a director when I was 28, leading a small contact center company that was outsourced. Our biggest client at the time was Michael Kors. We had Coach, Checkers, everyone you could think of was our clients. But I was in that outsourcing side of the business. I was promoted to vice president there when I was 29. So when I looked up and I looked in the room, I said, okay, I'm the youngest person on this board. I'm also the only Black person. So talk about insecurities, talk about imposter syndrome, feeling as if, can I really add value here? But being in that environment taught me that no matter who you are, your weakness can be your superpower. So in that scenario, I said, okay, I'm closer to the age of the people in the front line. I can relate to them. Now I can be a caveat or a conduit to the board and say, hey, here's what we need to be doing as an organization. But I still have the work ethic of those who came before me, so they could relate to me and say, even though Sean's 20 years younger than us, we believe that he's going to grind hard. Being a person of color, most of our front line, we were Black. So to have a Black man being able to say and talk from our experience and understand how to actually build the right culture for us was also a value add. So I started walking these rooms and saying, I see how I can actually add value in these places. So when I joined Comcast, I joined there actually as a director, but for a much larger organization, of course, higher compensation. I moved to Colorado. I was now in this different environment where I'm working for a Fortune 50 company. We're heavily invested in technology, and I'm seeing where we're going. And I'm saying, okay, how do I stand out here? How do you not become a small fish in a big pond? And I'm naturally a person who just loves to go somewhere and build. So my superpower is that I can walk into any environment and look at the opportunities and say, here are the standard operating procedures we can create. Here are the roles and responsibilities. Here's the coaching guidelines. Here's how we get to the next level. So being there at Comcast, I was still able to innovate and find these opportunities of where I could do that. And I loved being there. And of course, having that exposure, I learned so many different things that I was able to apply to the next phase of my career. But I went back to about 10 years prior and I said, I always really wanted to work at a tech startup. And if you look at my career, I always went where it was broken or it needed to be built from scratch because I love that startup energy. And I used to be the guy who watched TechCrunch Cribs every single day at my desk as a call center agent. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. And I just wanted to be in these offices. So there was a tech startup at the time called Toast, where they were pre-IPO. And if you go to your restaurants tomorrow, you're probably going to start noticing these Toast devices everywhere you go now. But I was able to join that company and I came on as a senior director. And even though I hadn't been in tech or SaaS specifically, they saw that my experience of where I was could still come in and do the exact same job they needed me for. And after I did that, we IPO'd while I was there. I said, I never want to do anything else. I think I want to continue to live in this tech environment because it allows me to use all of my skills.
I love that. That is such a phenomenal journey, and I can attest to that. Wanting to come in and be a builder of things, or take up processes that are broken and streamline those. And I would say that that makes you a natural project manager. So that is a great skill that Sean has. So if you want to follow in his footsteps, then essentially learn some project management skills. With that being said, though, there's a few different things I want to unpack. I want to see, like, what did you actually do to prepare yourself for this career overall as far as your education? Do you have to have a specific educational background, certifications, or anything of that nature?
So funny enough, I am a high school dropout who went back and finished up, who then became a three-time college dropout. The only certification I have outside of some job certifications is certified pharmacy technician. So that's actually how I got in the contact center world. I was a pharmacy tech working for Walgreens. And then they had an opening at a contact center that was for the state of Texas Medicaid, and they hired pharmacy techs and hired me. But no, what I actually did was I didn't go the traditional route of going to get my 4-year degree to be in tech. I didn't go the route of even doing a course or even doing a boot camp. And I'm a big supporter of boot camps and courses, just putting that out there. I believe today is the time where we have the information in our hands to take advantage of it. But what I did was I studied like crazy. When I first became a senior leader, I was so insecure. So what I would do is each morning I would listen to podcasts, audiobooks, fireside chats, interviews of great leaders and great executive leaders. And every day I'm digesting this on my way to work. So while I'm in the shower, while I'm brushing my teeth, while I'm eating breakfast, while I'm driving to work, I'm hearing and I'm feeding myself. Because if you know anything about leadership, once you get to work, you belong to everybody else. So I needed to make sure I was feeding myself. And what I started to learn was I understood principles. I started understanding philosophies. So when I had conflicts and situations I was dealing with, I was always prepared for it. And what it taught me was that, okay, Sean, work ethic will help you keep your job, but study ethic will help you level up. And because I was constantly studying, I could walk into these boardrooms and every single person I talked to saw value in what I had to say because I sounded just like them. I knew where the industry was going and I didn't have to be insecure.
That's a great point that you came up with. And that's you actually answered one of my questions ahead of time. I was going to ask like what are some things that you did to help you stand out? But basically being prepared, right? And I think that a lot of people kind of overstep that. Like they just think when it comes to breaking into a specific industries or certain job markets, the only thing that matters is their piece of paper, which is their resume, and then their interview. But it's also very important for you to get into these rooms and know what to say when you get into these rooms, and ultimately understanding the culture. So what you're saying is that you studied the culture, you understood the jargon, the language, so that way you could speak to them, and not only speak to them, but you could help educate them on what you also knew. So that's something that I want everybody to definitely take away from that. So not only is Sean telling you that he has project management skills, but he's also an avid learner. He's a continual learner. And he also made sure that every time he stepped in the room, he had something to contribute. So love that. Love that. This is awesome so far. So I really want to know like why did you choose the cannabis industry? Like what was that about? And I don't even think that cannabis is legal in Georgia yet. So where is your company based out of?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm riding dirty. No, I'm just kidding. So our headquarters, our official headquarters is in Bend, Oregon. That's where we were founded. But we're all spread out. We all work from home at this point. Most of our executive team is actually now in Boston. And for me, I wasn't a person who grew up using cannabis. It was always around me. My friends did it. I intentionally just didn't. My dad did it. For me, it was just something I said, I don't want to do that. It's counterproductive. But I said if I ever did smoke for the first time, I would do it in Amsterdam. And that actually happened 2021. I was on a layover back from Dubai after a friend's wedding, and my friends and I, we enjoyed it. It was my very first time. And I said, okay, now I get why people do this.
That's so funny.
But still, it wasn't really something that I was into until my wife actually, it's the same, it's the following year, she ended up being in pain every single day. And it
Mm,
turns out that she had a degenerative disc disease. And what that did was it required her to then have surgery and put metal plates in her neck. But it took about 6 months before she could get the surgery from a timing standpoint. So they put her on pain meds and she didn't like it because she didn't want to get addicted. She has a family history of that. But also, they didn't even work. It was just numbing her mind, not numbing the pain. But the one
mm.
that worked was CBD. And I said, okay, this is powerful. There's more to this to cannabis than what's being put out there. So I started researching and seeing the impact it has on narcolepsy, the impact it has on children who are going through epilepsy, and the different things and benefits that it has for us, whether it's arthritis or whatever it may be. And I said, this is something I want to get behind. I still never planned on being a part of this industry until I actually had another job offer somewhere. And a colleague of mine, I called her up and I said, hey, I would love for you to be a reference. This company's based in Boston. You're in Boston. What are your
Mhm.
thoughts? And she said, hey, hold that thought. We're hiring the same role here at our company. And she said, meet with our executive team. So I met with them. And the one thing I noticed was that, for one, we as a company, we invest in what's called the Last Prisoner Project, which essentially means that we're giving funds to get individuals out of federal prison who are locked up because of cannabis. And
Mhm.
that mattered to me because we're impacting my community because we're overly impacted by it. But the big thing I saw was that, okay, you rarely see a Black executive in tech, but you see no Black executive in cannabis. And I said, if I'm going to go in this space, I'm going to go into it as a servant and as an example because I want to open up the door for more people. Because if we were overly impacted by this in comparison to other demographics, now we need to be a part of when that changes as well.
I
So
agree.
that's what motivated me to join Dutchy was my wife's illness, and then also to be an example and open the door for others.
Come on now. Come on now. I need some sound effects. I need some sound effects. I need a audio engineer. Come on. Come on board. But that is awesome. And I truly resonate with that. Just that selfless act, right? I love that you didn't just look at it from a selfish standpoint. Of course, you said that you are a natural builder, you want to come in and build things, but to really identify an issue, um, an industry that could solve an issue not only for your home life with your wife, but also the community overall. that is something that I'm really, really passionate about as well, is just, advocating for, our civil rights, because you're absolutely right. We are, a marginalized community, and we are heavily impacted by this. And, it's legal now from in most places. And if it's not legal, recreationally, it's legal, as far as medicine goes. But I find it so interesting that you were a certified pharmacy technician, and now you work in the now you work in the cannabis industry on software. So I think, I always say that, I'm a believer, so I always say that God has a funny sense of humor, and nothing happens by chance. But yeah, I think that's really impactful. So, are you the only African American at your company as a whole, since it's a startup? Like, how big is it?
Yeah, so we have about 500 to 600 employees. Um, I believe at the director and VP level, there were two of us. As of last week, we actually hired a regional vice president, who's also a Black man, which is awesome. So prior to that, I was the only Black VP plus in the company. So when you look at our senior leadership team, I was the only one representing these rooms, which I have an awesome team. I have awesome peers who actually care about change and care about leaning into all of this. We're very intentional, but at the same time, it's not a victory if I'm the only one there. Even if it's a
Mhm.
comfortable environment for me, we have to be intentional about saying, how can I help get someone else here who's great? Not because, hey, I want to bring you in because you're a minority. It's your
Exactly.
talent's there, your experience is there, you have the credentials. Let's take a look at this person.
I agree with that. I agree with that. Yeah, and that's always the caveat there, right? A lot of people feel like a lot of times that they get selected when they are a minority is only because they are a minority. So I like that you made that call out. Now, you said something earlier about you joined Toast before IPO. Now, some of my guests may not know what that means. So I would love for you to unpack that and let us know what it means to IPO.
Absolutely. So when you join a tech startup, they're typically going to offer you an equity stake in the company, which will come in the form of stock options. Some companies have RSUs, which are restricted stock units, but that's usually the difference between the two is that stock options are here's your buy price. So if the stock is currently worth $50, we'll sell it to you for $10. So when we go public, you'll be able to always have that $10 amount. So that's your stock options. Whereas an RSU is just saying, we're going to give you the stock, whatever it's valued at today. You have to put no money into buying it. They usually give you a lot more stock options than they'll ever give you RSUs. So typically you want to get as many options as possible, if possible. Um, what happens is that as that company is continuing to raise money in the private sector, the value of those stocks should go up. So you're owning stock, you may have bought it at $10, it was $50, now it's valued at $100. The day they IPO and now they're on the public market, the value of your stocks could either go up, sometimes it comes back down, but you're able to actually sell your stock on the market. So you call it initial public offering, which is an IPO. So it's out on Wall Street. They'll freeze your ability to sell for a few months. Let's say after 3 months, you're now able to say, you know what, I have all these shares. I'm willing to sell half of them and maybe get $500,000 in my bank account and go buy my first home.
Come on now. So that is a come up. So that's not really talked about very often. So is that one of the reasons why you are fond of startups, or you know, is that just come with the territory?
I mean, no, absolutely. The biggest regret in my career, I've built so many departments. Like when I tell you, blood, sweat, and tears, turned business around, accounts over $250 million. But in a lot of those companies, I didn't own any equity. 90% of the companies, I own no equity.
Wow.
So I look back and you see, man, I helped that company go to $100 million company, but they just paid me a paycheck. And I usually was underpaid. And that's the thing about me. I don't chase the money, I chase the opportunity. But to be clear, my income is always doubled every year, but usually it's because I'm willing to sacrifice the more moment to get something else.
Mm,
But what I did was learn from that experience and said, okay, if I'm going to go somewhere and put my neck out there and put my energy out there, let me make sure I actually have something to walk away with. So I'm an owner in this business as well. And I've really focused on tech startups because of that. You don't even have to come in at the VP level. You can come in as a frontline employee. For example, at our company, if I hire you as one of my support specialists, we're giving you equity. So in a couple years, that could be worth a lot. So even if it's only worth $30,000, imagine what that can do for as a down payment on a home for you, or to buy that car you wanted to buy, or go on that vacation. So I'm a big fan of that. Also, tech companies tend to have better benefits. Good health care, unlimited
I
time
agree.
off. Where it's a better environment. And now that we live in an environment where we can work from home, even the compensation, usually tech startups don't pay you as much as like the big companies will pay you because they focus more on equity. But me living in Atlanta, my salary is still going to be considerably larger than a VP role here locally if I'm working for one that's a tech startup that's based on the West Coast. So you put
Exactly.
yourself in a position where you have more compensation as well.
Okay, Sean, that this was really good. You've been dropping bars the entire time. But I want to know what you have to say for to someone who's trying to follow in your footsteps. Like, what are those exact steps that they can take today, or to achieve the role less travel like yourself?
Yeah, so if you want to avoid waiting until you do your courses or your boot camps or your degree certifications, what you can do right away is do something great. And what I mean by that is a lot of times in our career, we sit there and we say, I'm just going to do what's in my job description, and we'll get a nice little review. But you don't realize there's another rating system that's not just outstanding or low performer. There's also potential, high potential, low potential, and you want to live in the high potential. And the way you do that is by taking on new projects. So even if you're a frontline employee saying, "Hey, can I be a part of that pilot program?" So what starts to happen is when you start doing great things, you can then take that and put it on your resume. So there's this part of your resume that's called the objective that I hate. If you have an objective, get rid of it. Objective is what you should have when you are fresh out of college. What you want to have there is your career summary. And think about it like a highlight reel to say, okay, if I'm watching a movie trailer, what about you makes me want you? So you want to make it easy for the recruiter so they can look at your resume and say, wow, this person won awards. They were part of this product that saved $7 million. They launched AI at this company, because they're going to take that summary and then use that to go sell you to the hiring manager. So you want to make it easy from them. The next thing you want to do is market yourself. And a lot of times we don't do that, even at our own companies. Let our leaders keep track of what we've done. We don't keep track of our own success. When you're doing great things, put it out there. Use LinkedIn. I literally wrote a whole book about it. You got to use LinkedIn and start your own professional brand. And what you do is you say, take that same career highlight reel, put that in your about section. But what you want to do is start posting things that you know and start putting your voice out there, and start engaging with certain communities on LinkedIn, because what you'll find is that what you have to say is valuable. But if no one knows that you're doing great work and no one knows that you're a great person, they won't even think about bringing you in. So make sure you're marketing yourself. Always tie it back to a product. You could have the greatest product in the world, but if no one knows it exists, no one's going to try to line up to buy it.
Mm-hmm.
And the third thing, this is what you want to do. This is a hack. And I can talk a little bit about this as far as resources I use as well. But you want to identify companies that unknowingly need you. Identify who needs you more than you need them. And what I mean by that is a lot of these tech startups, they're going through growth phases. So let's say it's a fintech company and you're a bank teller. This fintech company is growing. They probably are past Series A and their Series B. If you identify a gap in their business and you reach out to them and you say, hey, I would love to have a coffee chat with one of the leaders or whoever it may be, you'll start being able to pitch what you could do for their company. And now, instead of you having to apply for a job that 300 other people have applied for, you've come to the business adding value, building a relationship. And they're like, hey, we need you here at our organization. Can you create what you told us about, so that now we can mirror what's going on at Bank of America, Truist Bank, etc.
Man, that was so good. I was not expecting you to give us resume tips, but that is near and dear to my heart. So I love that, because I also say the same thing about like your objective statement. And that also goes back to LinkedIn, which I don't feel like people should have on their heading aspiring XYZ, because recruiters and hiring managers are looking for people who are, not those who are aspiring. And then that translates into your resume. So your resume wants to paint the picture that you are the expert, even if you haven't been in that role in that specific title. You have that skill set, so you need to be able to highlight how those skills can transition or transfer into the role that you are seeking. So love that. And very very high level, I would say, um if you want to take that a step further, not only just show all of your highlights at the summary of your resume, but also make sure you're incorporating that throughout all of your bullet points. Show all of the achievements that you're making, showing those metrics. I achieved XYZ. I achieved X by doing XYZ. That's essentially what hiring managers and recruiters are looking for. And exactly what Sean said, LinkedIn is a way for you to market yourself. Your resume is a way for you to market yourself. And a lot of times you can just put your stuff out there. And if you put it out there in a correct manner and effectively, recruiters and hiring managers will come to you. Like, I often get recruiters. I just had a recruiter reach out to me before I even joined this call today. So that's always a plus when you're not actually looking and people can see your value just by you putting your information out there and all your accolades. So love that, Sean.
Can
Thank
I,
you so much.
yeah, can I touch on that a little bit? Because I think you hit the nail.
Absolutely.
Quick tip: you never want to have to apply for a job.
Mm,
Because when you don't apply and they source you, when they're the ones recruiting you, you're higher on the priority list. You tend to skip
mhm,
a lot of the red tape. So you always want them coming for you. So one thing I used to do, and I kind of still do on LinkedIn, is that if I'm soft looking, which means I'm not actively looking for a role, but I just want to make sure I'm out there, I'll find companies that are hiring my role and I will go and identify every recruiter at that company and just connect with them. I won't DM them, I won't message them, nothing, just connect. So if that specific recruiter is looking at my page and they're like, wait a minute, I have this role, this person's perfect, they'll contact me. And if they contact me, I've put myself in a position where I didn't apply. So now they're trying to convince me to apply. And when you're trying to convince me to apply, that's when I'm a priority. So just a quick tip.
exactly. Yep. And that also gives you a lot of leverage when it comes to negotiating, which I always encourage people to do, especially people of color, because that's something that we don't often do. And then you take it a step further. Women, we typically don't negotiate at all. So you want to do that first and foremost. But just like what Sean said, you have that leverage if a recruiter reaches out to you. Now, from my experience, I've had recruiters reach out to me and they didn't look at my LinkedIn or my resume first at all. So that's why you also want to make sure that you're doing your due diligence and vetting the company or vetting the recruiter as well once you make that initial contact. But yeah. So you said a few things earlier. You said that you actually wrote a whole book on LinkedIn. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, and it's funny because this was never something I thought I would do. But I started speaking last year. Well, I started speaking a couple of years ago, but I got serious about it towards last year. And as you start speaking, the more you speak, you figure out what your audience wants. And I got really active on LinkedIn the day I took this job. And the reason why is I wanted to live up to my promise. I said, I need to be a representation of what's possible, especially and be more vulnerable. I never told people that I was a homeless high school dropout at 19. I never told people about my struggles. I kind of hid behind, hey, I'm this elite guy who went to a great school. Let you assume that. But I started owning my flaws to be an example. And I started posting more on LinkedIn and getting more of a following and starting to speak on bigger and bigger stage and more podcasts. And people would come to me and they would always ask me, hey, how are you so good on LinkedIn? I'm nervous about it because I don't know what to write about. I don't know what to put on my profile. I would love to do what you're doing. So I literally wrote a book about it to answer that need because I didn't have time to one-on-one coach. And this year I've had an opportunity to speak at dozens of companies who've actually purchased the book. So I typically come speak, they purchase it, and it's a guide and a planner. So they can actually keep track of their progression, of what they're posting, of their own content. And I did that as more of a way not to make money, but to say, if I'm going to come speak to you, I want to leave you with value that can help you out.
I love that. And do you feel like that has benefited you more so in your career as a leader, or is that beneficial for everyone, even job seekers?
Absolutely, as a lead, because what happens is you go into a mindset of servitude. So you're thinking of how do I solve the problem of others? And as leaders, the greatest thing we can do is give back. I think there's a great quote that says, you're not a leader until you create a leader who creates another leader.
Mm,
And even if you don't become a leader, if I help you achieve what you want in your life, that's important to me. And I could tell a little story about where this came from. I figured out my professional why back when I was living in Mexico. First time as a manager, I was nervous, didn't know what I was doing. I hired 5 analysts that were reporting into me, and we were trying to figure out on our own, no budget. And one of the analysts who reported into me, his name was Caesar. He was a call center rep when I got there, making $4 an hour. But prior to to coming down to our organization, he was living in Arizona with his family. He had a wife and 3 kids. He was making the equivalent of $90,000 today as an engineer. And his kids and his wife were born in the US. He got deported on a technicality. And when that happened, he, his three kids, and his wife had to go live in a shed in his aunt's backyard. So when I met him, this was his experience. He went from making almost six figures to making $4 an hour, but you would never know it. And I'm working with him. I'm like, this guy is great. He knows so much. He helped me build so many tools in house, that when I had an opportunity to take on another department of the company, I promoted him to supervisor and let him run that company. And the last time I saw him, he brought me to his house with his family. He showed me, this is the home that you allowed me to actually purchase for my family. You changed my life. And at that moment, I knew leadership is everything I want to do.
Wow. Ooh, that is impactful. That is so powerful. And you did that and you're not even 40 yet? I'm so impressed. You're doing great things. Okay. Well, Sean, this has been such a great interview. And I want you to leave the audience with some points of advice. Like if they could take anything away from what you shared today with not only about your journey, but also, how they can start their journey and actually transition into the tech industry or one day become a VP of support like yourself, what would that be?
Yeah, one thing I would say is own your flaws. If a lot of us have grown up in the Shark Tank era since the recession, and if you notice what ended up happening was people started investing more in companies or buying from companies more that we actually knew the owners. I want to know your story. I want to know that you created this product because your kid was allergic to honey. I want to know what's behind you. And it's the same way in the professional world where people want to know you're not perfect and they want to know you're just like us because we love the hero's journey. So don't be afraid to own your flaws. Put yourself out there. Make sure you're selling yourself, and you're always highlighting your own wins, and you're always studying. But the other thing I'd say is something practical is that if you're looking for organizations who could be interested in what you have to bring to the table, use crunchbase.com. I love going to Crunchbase because you can see who's gotten funding, what rounds they're in, how big the company is, who the founders are, and you can do research to know, is this a company that I would love to work for? And if so, let me go on LinkedIn and see if I can connect with a few of these people. So that's a practical tool that you can use tomorrow. But overall, I would say the biggest message that I've learned is that it doesn't matter where you start. You know, growing up in the hood, it doesn't matter if you came from poverty, it doesn't matter if you messed up early in life. We all now have an opportunity in 2023 to change ourselves. And if you see somebody else who's struggling and you've gotten in a better place, pull them up too. The only way we all can make it over here is if we make an effort to change the community instead of complaining about what's in the community. So thank you for the time. Thank you for listening. And hopefully I've been able to help you lift you up a little bit too.
Absolutely. You definitely lift me up. This has been phenomenal. I appreciate you so much, Sean. Not only just for you coming on today, but also just your encouraging words, and then also just reaching out and showing interest. This is something I'm super passionate about, which is helping others, and this is also something that I love about the tech industry. Coming from a completely different sector, a completely different industry, this industry is all about helping other people, and it's not competitive. Like there's no competition. People know that technology is changing every single day, and there's always room for others to sit, at the table with you. So I love that, and I'm so happy that you are in a position of leadership to be an example for other people.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Yeah, no problem. Well, I will catch up with you a little bit later, but thank you again for all of your contributions, and hopefully when I get to Atlanta next time we can link up.
Definitely, definitely.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Sean. All right, you guys. Now you heard it here first. Not only did Sean, not only did Sean level up to be a VP in all of 3 years, you guys, but he doesn't have a perfect background. He said that he dropped out of high school, and he also dropped out of college. Eventually, he went back, but he doesn't have a picture perfect story. So I wanted you all to take that as an encouragement towards your life as well. And he didn't start out in a technical role. He started out at a call center at Comcast. So for those who don't know, that's just like any other, telecommunications or cable company. So very traditional background, but he was able to sit down, figure out what his skill sets were, and also what he can contribute and add to the rooms that he stepped foot in. So if I could leave you all with any advice that I've heard from Sean is make sure that you do your due diligence, brag on yourself, especially my ladies. We always told to be humble, but brag on yourself and all of your accomplishments. Don't put up aspiring anything on your LinkedIn, but be active on LinkedIn. And then that one gem that he left was go ahead and go to crunchbase.com just to see what companies are doing. And then also follow recruiters whose companies are hiring, but don't necessarily apply to the role. That way you can make sure that you stand out as a candidate and they can come to you. All right. Well, again, it's been an honor to have Sean on. Thank you all for following this platform. I know we're coming up on a year now, y'all. This is amazing. Like we're coming up on a year, so we have our 1 year anniversary coming up in November. So I'm super excited about that. Have a lot of new things coming down the pipeline. But until next time, peace.